Hi, hello, my name is dis.cat. This is Project Hardcover, where we're letting books be the escape. I am going to get so much crap over this video, it's not even funny. But anywho, hello lovelies! So yes, as you may have guessed from that previous statement, I am not doing the normal video today. No, today I'm going to be doing a slightly different and most likely problematic video. This video is gonna be kind of discussion-y, a little bit ranty, just a little bit, which I never ever do. But this has been something that has just been bothering me for years and years now, and then just recently it kind of just came to a head, and I really don't feel like I can not voice my opinion about this anymore, so I'm just gonna do it, even though I'm sure I'm going to be persecuted for it. But not to leave you in suspense any longer, today I am going to be talking about why I defend Severus Snape. I know I just blew all y'all's minds, but I'm gonna go even a step further. Not only do I defend Severus Snape, oh no, Severus Snape is my favorite character in the entire Harry Potter series. Oh, I know, I can just hear your manic clicking of that unsubscribe button. I'm committing social suicide here. But you see, that right there, the fact that I feel like I am committing social suicide, that I'm going to be persecuted and just given all of this flack for voicing this opinion, to me is just ludicrous. So like I said before, this is something that has been bothering me for years, especially where Tumblr is concerned. For some reason, just a vast majority of the people on Tumblr have joined together in this movement against Severus Snape and all of his sympathizers, and it's just really kind of crazy. And I'm on Tumblr a lot, and I see these posts about how terrible Severus Snape is and how if you sympathize with Severus Snape, you're a bad person, and all of that stuff. I see that stuff a lot, and usually I just scroll right past it. I mean, these are anonymous faces. They're not even really faces. They're just ones and zeros. I'm never gonna see these people, and I don't feel like getting into this epic battle with these people who are probably not going to be mature about the matter at all, so I just let it go. But it's a little different when it's coming from people that you know in real life. And this is where we come to the whole it came to a head thing. So I was on Facebook not too long ago, and this girl that I'm friends with on Facebook posted this status. And this status said, "People who defend Severus Snape make me deeply uncomfortable." And that statement made me deeply uncomfortable. Now, don't get me wrong, I really like this girl. I think that this girl is incredibly intelligent, incredibly mature. I agree with her on so many things. We like the same books, we like the same people, just this statement it made me feel bad. And not in the whole, oh, she's disagreeing with something that I agree with, and oh, we have a difference of opinion, feel bad. No, she made me feel bad like I'm an icky person feel bad. I don't know if that was her intention, but that's how that made me feel, and that's just not okay with me. So we got into a discussion about it in her comment section, and it just astounded me how many people just came flocking to her same sentiment about how terrible Severus Snape was, and how can people possibly, sympathize with him? He's so awful and just ew and gross, and it was just mind-boggling to me. So I threw in my 2 cents here and there, was met with just complete opposition, no slight give, at all in what I was saying. And then the girl that I'm friends with, she posted a link to this so-called excellent article as to why Severus Snape is an awful character. And I say excellent article because this article, they're writing a literary analysis of a character. That's what they're doing. So naturally, when you're writing a literary analysis of a character, it kind of just makes sense that you would quote from the source material to back up your arguments. That's what most people do. This person, whoever wrote this article, used source material that actually came from the books one time. And then they proceeded to use Tumblr text posts, like the little text posts that anybody could write, as source material at least 2 or 3 times. Oh my god. I'm sorry, if you want to be taken seriously when you're writing an analysis for a literary character, I'm sorry, you need to pull information directly from the source material. Otherwise, just what the hell are you doing? And also, Tumblr text posts? Are you serious? Like, those could have been written by anybody. Those people could have possibly never even read the books. They could have just heard something from someone else. You have no idea. I mean, I, for one, have posted God knows how many text posts about how me and Dylan O'Brien are married, but that is not a wedding ring. So yes, this was the moment when I was just like, you know what? I can't take this anymore. Just ever since then, just every Tumblr post that I see about it, or anytime I hear anyone out in public talking about it, it just infuriates me like it never has before. So I just want to get my opinion out there and just let everyone know why I feel this way and how I justify it. So I have a little list here of things that people use as, I guess, proof that Snape is a god-awful character. He's a terrible, malicious person. And so that's kind of how I'm going to go about this. I'm going to go through this list of things and talk about why I feel that he did these things and why I feel that he was justified in these things, or just go against the popular opinion, I guess, is how I'm going to do this, just to try and keep it as short as possible. It is going to be probably a longer video, but I'm gonna try and keep it as short as possible because I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. Now, some of these things are things that I have seen just brought up from Tumblr. Some of these things are things that this friend of mine brought up, and some of these things are the things that were discussed in the excellent article, which I will link down below. People, go read that. It is some of the most hilarious stuff I have ever read in my entire life. Like, I was cackling while I was reading it. Alright, so we're gonna start with the probably most obvious thing that people have a problem with Snape about, and that is the treatment of his students. This was the first thing that my friend on Facebook brought up, was that he was terrible and abusive to all of his students, all while he was a teacher, and I had a very logical rebuttal to this, and that is that Snape was a double agent. Yes, Snape was a double agent for the Order of the Phoenix, but also, and this one kind of gets left by the wayside, Snape was also kind of a double agent for Dumbledore as well. So yes, we all know about Snape being a double agent for the Order and, you know, relaying information from Voldemort to Dumbledore and back and forth, back and forth. But the whole Dumbledore double agent thing, I think that a lot of people forget about. See, people have this misconception that the really big reason why Dumbledore wouldn't let Snape be the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher at Hogwarts was because he didn't trust him to be teaching dark arts to, you know, younger children and that. But that's just not true. Not only does that just not have any foundation in the books at all, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, sure, let's teach kids how to make potions that could potentially poison people. I'll trust you to do that, but I'm not gonna trust you to teach children how to defend themselves against Death Eaters. Just what? So, no, people, that's not the reason why Snape was not allowed to become a Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. The main reason why Dumbledore wanted Snape to stay Potions Master is because Potions Master is head of house for Slytherin. And Dumbledore wanted Snape to keep his eyes on the Slytherin students because, this may be a shock to some people, the Slytherin students had a nasty habit of becoming Death Eaters. And Dumbledore kinda wanted Snape to keep his eye on them to kinda try and prevent them from doing that. Or at the very least, to tell Dumbledore, hey, this kid is kinda heading in a not good direction. Maybe we should do something about that, or at the very least, keep our eyes on it. So now I'm sure you're asking, how does that have anything to do with why he was a douchebag to his kids? And this is where the whole double agent thing comes in. When you're pretending to be an insider for the Dark Lord, you can't exactly be nice to the Half-Blood kids, or the Mudblood kids, or even any of the kids that aren't pure-blooded Slytherin kids, because in the eyes of the Death Eaters and the Dark Lord, those kids are just better. So they deserve to be treated better. So no, Snape couldn't be nice to Hermione even though she was the smartest kid in the class because she was a Muggle-born. And no, he couldn't be nice to Ron Weasley because his family was Half-Blood and Mudblood sympathizers. And of course, he couldn't be nice to Harry Potter. He's kind of the arch nemesis to the Dark Lord. Just none of it would have made any sense. And this is when my friend on Facebook made a good point. She said, well, Snape was a dick to his kids even before Harry came to school and before it was even a popular belief that Voldemort had come back. And I also have a rebuttal for this directly from the books. It says in the books that yes, Snape also believed that Voldemort was gone, that after that night in Godric's Hollow, that Voldemort was gone, he was never coming back, he didn't have to worry about it anymore. But Dumbledore took him aside and said, no, honey, he's gonna come back. And when he comes back, he's gonna try and get to Harry. And this is when Dumbledore said, hey, as a way to honor Lily's memory, how about you protect her kid when the Dark Lord comes for him? And Snape agreed. This is also when Dumbledore said, yeah, I'm never gonna let you become Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher because I need you to keep an eye on these Slytherin kids, because we kinda don't want Voldemort to have this giant Death Eater army to come back to. There's also just the little added fact that the Slytherin kids were probably watching every freaking move that Snape made. Just waiting for the moment that he messed up and they could write their mommy and daddy and say, ooh, Snape messed up, he did this. And then mommy and daddy could take that information to Voldemort and be like, oh, look what your right-hand man is doing. He's not so great anymore. So they could steal Snape's position. That's also just a completely logical explanation. So that is my refute to that argument. Snape was not mean to his kids because he just got off on being malicious and cruel to children. No, it was part of the act. When you decide to be a double agent in the biggest war that your world has ever known, you don't exactly get the luxury of slacking off. You have to commit, even if that means being a douchebag. There's also just the added fact that Snape was highly respected by all of the other teachers at Hogwarts, including Professor McGonagall. You know, Professor McGonagall, who kind of lost her shit when Mad-Eye Moody turned Draco Malfoy into a ferret, which was completely harmless, but still not okay. And do we even need to remember the whole Umbridge thing, how she felt about that? So do you guys honestly think that if Snape was truly being malicious and abusive to his students for no reason other than just he wanted to, that McGonagall would have let that shit fly? I don't think so. Next argument, please. So the next thing, and this is the thing that Tumblr like loses their minds over the most, and this is probably just the thing that I don't understand the most, and it is the Lily Potter problem. So for some reason, Tumblr has decided that Snape was just the most misogynistic, possessive, and god-awful person in the world to Lily Potter. And I literally do not understand this at all. Lily Potter and Severus Snape were best friends. Were best friends their entire childhoods. That's not some fallacy that Snape made up in his mind. It's fact. It's in the books. And yes, when he got into school and he got older, he did start merging in with the dark arts crowd. And yes, this did cause problems between him and Lily. And then, of course, we find out that one day when James and Sirius were picking on Severus, Severus made a huge no-no and called Lily Potter a mudblood. And that was when she said, "I'd had enough." And that's when their friendship, everything, their entire relationship dissolved, and they went their separate ways. But according to the world of Tumblr, that's not how this went down. No, apparently the entire time, Snape felt that Lily owed him her love and that she needed to be with him or nothing at all, and he just saw her as some object. He didn't really love her, he just loved the idea of her. And people, where are you getting this stuff from? It says nowhere in the books that Snape felt that Lily owed him anything. Yes, Severus was hurt and upset that Lily chose James Potter over him, but then again, that is kind of understandable. I mean, again, at one point, Lily and Severus were friends. I mean, how would any of us feel if the person that we loved unconditionally from the time we were children decided that they were going to date someone who was kind of an ass face to us the entire time we were at school? Don't pretend like you guys wouldn't be hurt and upset by it. You know, it wasn't some possessive thing. It wasn't some, oh, she belongs to me thing. It was, you know, I genuinely love her and she's with someone else, and that sucks. And not only is she with someone else, but she's with someone else that, you know, was kind of a jerk face to me the entire time, and I don't really understand what she sees in him. So that sucks too, which again, all of that is completely understandable. And the aforementioned excellent article, when they were discussing this, said that Snape saw Lily as a possession, and when Snape went to Voldemort and asked for Lily's life in exchange for James and Harry's, it made it seem like he was trying to possess her, like he was asking Voldemort to give her to him. And that's not what happened. Yes, Severus did say, okay, take James and take the baby, but spare Lily. Let her live. Not give her to me so I can lock her in my closet and not let anything bad happen to her. Just please let her live. And yes, this was, you know, kind of a not okay thing to do. You know, yes, kill the woman I love's husband and child, but honestly, none of us know what we would do in that kind of situation. I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying that it was a good thing to do. It was kind of messed up. All I'm saying is if the person I loved was going to die, if I knew that the person that I loved was in mortal danger, was going to die, I have no idea what I would do, what lengths and what I would say to help them live. I have no idea what I would do. I don't think any of us do. And then the thing that gets people on Tumblr in the biggest tizzy I have ever seen is the scene from the movies when Snape is walking through Godric Hollow and he goes upstairs and he finds Lily dead and he's cradling her body to him, and people just have a cow. They're like, oh yes, step over the dead body of my husband and ignore my crying child and violate me in my death by, you know, touching me, and just... People, seriously? Okay, yes, Snape does walk over James's dead body. But honestly, what did you expect him to do? To kneel down and cry over James too? Look, fact is, James and Severus had problems when James was alive. There was no lost love there, so no, I'm not surprised that Severus didn't, mourn James's death. And then there's the fact that yes, James was lying there dead. There's nothing he could have done. Lily and Harry are still somewhere in this house. He kinda needs to go find them, so that's what he did. So then we get to the part where he walks into the room, and you'll note in the scene that the first thing he looks at in the room is Harry. Harry is crying. He looks at Harry, sees that Harry is crying in the crib. Obviously, Harry's crying. He's sitting upright. He's obviously okay. He has, an injury on his head, but other than that, he looks perfectly fine. He's crying. He's obviously not in any mortal danger. Then he looks down and he sees Lily. And yes, people, he did what anyone in that situation would have done. He lost his shit, picked her up, and started hysterically sobbing. This is the love of his life, a woman he has loved unconditionally his entire life, and now she's dead. And not only is she dead, it's something that he felt on some level he could have prevented, and he didn't. So yes, of course he's heartbroken, and he's, holding her and crying. This was his best friend once, and I don't understand why people go out of their way to make the things that he does sound so awful. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen this exact situation play out in countless other books, and everyone's just like, oh, it was the most romantic thing in the world, and their love was so amazing. His love for her was so pure, and why couldn't she see the light? And it's just sickening. And no, I'm not one of those people who think that naturally Lily should have picked Severus over James. Severus made choices that, ruined that relationship for him, and that's understandable. I understand why Lily did what she did. But I also keep in mind that J.K. Rowling herself has stated that if Severus had not gotten caught up in all of the dark art stuff when he was in school, that she's not entirely sure that Lily wouldn't have picked him in the end. So obviously, the Severus and the Lily being together and Severus's love for Lily thing was not completely unfounded. It was something that she seriously considered. Long story short, Severus Snape is not a misogynist, he is not possessive, he was in love. Period. That's it. Then we get to the next argument, which is the aforementioned of getting involved in the dark arts as a youth. Yes, Severus Snape did get caught up in the wrong crowd while he was in school. But this didn't even need to be explained away by me. This was explained away by JK herself. She herself stated that Severus Snape was from an incredibly broken home, and that he was constantly seeking acceptance, some place where he would feel loved and feel respected and feel liked. And one of the places that he found that was, shocker, with Lily, and the other place was with fellow Death Eaters. He found that sense of community, he found that sense of camaraderie and of partnership, something that countless troubled youths look for in their lives. This is something that kids do in everyday life. Countless kids who come from troubled homes, troubled backgrounds, and live in troubled areas, find themselves in gangs because they feel that, it's a sense of community. It's a place where they feel that they have people who will look out for them and care about them in a way that they don't necessarily get at home. No, it's not excusable, but it's understandable. And that's what a lot of these things are going to be. It's not that everything that Snape did was excusable, but it was understandable. I'm not saying that Severus Snape is the most innocent, little, perfect, too good for this world cinnamon roll. I'm just saying that he's a complex character. He's a Byronic hero. He's an anti-hero, and that is not coming from me. That is coming from JK herself. JK Rowling herself claims that Severus Snape is the anti-hero of the series. So then we move on to our next argument, which is Snape's treatment of Harry in particular. And I'm just gonna get this out of the way first up. Yes, I do believe that a grand majority of the reason why Snape was as much of a D-bag to Harry was because Harry reminded Severus of James. Again, not completely excusable, but understandable. You have the child of the woman that you have loved your entire life and the D-bag that totally made your life hell all during school standing in front of you. It's gonna pick at some old wounds. But it's not as if Severus didn't ever do anything to help Harry along. I mean, do we need to remember how first year Snape kind of went out of his way to stop Quirrell from killing Harry? That was a thing. Another thing that aforementioned excellent article brought up was this entire section on Remus Lupin. The article stated how Severus had this mission in life to bring Remus low. And again, where is it coming from? It says nowhere in the books that Snape was just out to get Remus. Only time that there was any hostility between Remus and Sirius was when Remus was a teacher there. And yes, Snape kinda did leave little breadcrumbs here and there about werewolves while Remus was a teacher, but the only person who even remotely caught on was Hermione. It is my full belief that all of that was just leftover petty bullcrap from when they were in school. And then of course everyone uses the whole Severus outed Remus to everyone at the end of the third book that he was a werewolf. But then again, can you blame him? I mean, Snape just had to stand in and defend 3 students from Remus because he transformed in front of them. It just kinda wasn't a good environment for a werewolf to be in. And need I remind everyone that it was Severus who was making Remus's potions so that he wouldn't transform all of that time? I have no idea where this person pulled that from. It was like they just literally pulled it from a hat and was just like, here you go. I couldn't believe that was there. And then the last thing that I'm going to talk about, it was discussed in the article and just, I think the article took it way too far. And it is Severus's treatment of Neville Longbottom. Okay, so it's no shocker to anyone that Neville kinda gets it a little harder from Snape than everybody else. And yes, I'm sure that a big portion of that is just sheer frustration on Severus's part because Neville is kind of just awful at potions. Again, not acceptable, just understandable, but also, and this isn't exactly sourced in the books, I'm just letting you guys know that, it's not sourced in the books, at least not as best to my knowledge. This is just my opinion on the matter. The fact is, the prophecy for the 2 boys, for Harry and for Neville, the only reason really that it's Harry, that the reason why Voldemort is so focused on Harry and believes it's Harry is just because he decided. Like seriously, it says in the books that it could be either one of them, and it just says that Voldemort just, picked Harry, just said, nope, it's gonna be you. But it totally could have been Neville, so I think that might have something to do with why Severus was a little bit more douchebag to Neville. I think that it might have been some really effed up way of trying to prepare him for possibly having to take on this huge responsibility later. Also think that might be why Dumbledore sometimes went out of his way to praise Neville about things that he did as far as like standing up for himself like he did at the end of the first book. Again, not excusable, but understandable. But my main problem with what the article said is this part where they talked about, oh, how much must you torment and abuse a student for their boggart to take your form? How effed up do you have to make a kid? And that just, it just irks me. Particularly because you take the fact that in the second book, Ron Weasley had his sister, his baby sister, abducted by the Dark Lord. You know, one of his Horcruxes, like, possessed her body and drug her down to the Chamber of Secrets where she was hanging out with a basilisk that was going around killing and petrifying people. And then the following year, his boggart turned into a spider. I'm sorry, I just feel that if, especially after experiencing all of that, if someone had asked me what the most terrifying thing in my life was, I wouldn't pick a spider anymore. I mean, I'm terrified of spiders, but if I had just seen my sister go through all of that, I don't think I would have picked a spider anymore. Also, and this is from the books, all of Neville's insecurity is from his grandmother. It's his grandmother that's constantly telling him how he's never going to live up to his parents' sacrifice, how he's never going to be a great wizard. She was convinced that he wasn't even going to be magical at all. That is where Neville's insecurity comes from. It's not from Snape. So I just wanted to get out through all of this that no, not everything that Snape has done in his life was excusable. Yeah, he did kind of do some messed up and questionable things. Does that make him just the bottom of the barrel, the most god-awful person ever? No. It makes him the Byronic hero. It makes him the anti-hero. In these kinds of stories, you always have the more traditional, straight-laced, follows the rules kind of hero, and then you have the anti-hero, dark hero, Byronic hero, the one that kind of strays off as far as morals go, is more willing to do some dark things to get the job done, but still, to the core, they are good. Extremely popular examples of this would be Obi-Wan Kenobi and Han Solo, Scott McCall and Stiles Stilinski from Teen Wolf, and then you have Dumbledore and Severus. So that's just my opinion on things. I think, and always have thought, that Snape is just an incredibly deep and complex character with so many different facets, and it was just so amazing to read about, especially when I was young. You know, when I was younger, books had two types of people, the good people and the bad people. And Snape was like my first example that that's not how it works. Everyone has dark and light in them, and that is exactly what Snape is. I also just kind of feel that we should, you know, honor how J.K. Rowling wanted us to perceive this character, and she wanted us to perceive this character as the anti-hero. Yes, he had problems, and yes, he did problematic things, but overall, he was a hero. He was a good guy. He was fighting for the right side and trying to do what was best. And he did deserve forgiveness and redemption in the end, which is why she had Harry name one of his kids after him. I'm not just pulling this out of a hat. The author of the books herself says that this is how I was supposed to interpret it, and I did. And I don't think that I should feel ashamed or should be made to feel ashamed for feeling this way. So that's my opinion on all of this. Feel free to discuss any and all of this with me down in the comments. As long as everyone wants to be mature adults about it, I would have no problem discussing this topic further. I would also love to hear if anyone else out there loves Snape as much as I do, or feels the need to defend him when people start trying to turn him into this ogre of a character. Tell me about it down below. We can all band together in defense of our house head and just, you know, love this incredibly deep and complex character. As always, thanks you guys for watching. I will see you next time, and remember, books are the escape.